Do you want to state your name and say how you got involved in all this?
Yes, my name is Cavan Stone. I got involved in this because I was a student at Dartmouth College, and I dropped in a class with Robert Hargraves and sat in, listened, and he talked about molten salt reactors in his class, and that inspired me to go look up energy from thorium and do the research on all the original Oak Ridge documents. And lo and behold, after reading it, I said to myself, we've got a viable solution here that's been tested and demonstrated for 5 years. Why aren't we doing this? The question everyone asks. Why aren't we doing this? Is anyone doing this? Oh, no one's doing it. I guess I gotta go and do it myself with this small, merry band of people.
What was your take after you heard about it other than, oh, this sounds cool?
Well, Robert was actually very good in the presentation. He, pretty shortly into the presentation, he mentioned Eugene Wigner and Alvin Weinberg. And, well, Eugene Wigner, oh, I know that name. This is the guy whose name is plastered all throughout the quantum mechanics textbooks. Pretty much, you look anywhere, vastly different fields, and you'll find Eugene Wigner's name right there in it. There's the Wigner cell, the Wigner energy. It's just, he's got his name on everything. So I knew Eugene Wigner was a smart guy. So I really wasn't so dismissive at first because of, well, the history with Eugene Wigner. It really was a question, though, of, well, if Eugene Wigner did all these wonderful things, why isn't this being, and pretty much did a lot of things that physicists used, why isn't this being used? Is there a reason why it's not being used? So I looked through and tried to find a reason why technically this reactor would not work, and I couldn't find any. So the conclusion I came to is, all right, we gotta, someone, and I guess that someone's gotta be us, someone's gotta go out and actually find if this thing can actually solve the energy crisis. Because extrapolating out from what they did at Oak Ridge, all the evidence suggests it can.
So what do you see as a future if we can actually deploy lifters? Like what kind of, beyond the status quo, what do you think it might impact on society?
So that's a big question. Well, I think the first thing that's gonna hit is that well, we'll get cheaper electricity out of the deal. But the canonical example that I always use, that I always compare this whole technology to, is coal tar. And what coal tar did to the modern chemical industry is kind of a historical anecdote. So coal tar was this waste product from burning coal that nobody wanted, aka just like thorium. And so this guy, William Perkin, took a look at coal tar, and what he discovered was artificial dye. Now, this was back in the late 19th century. Now, they took this aniline dye and he tried to develop it in Britain, but the British dropped the ball on this, and they really messed up the industry. And instead, the Germans were the ones who actually started developing artificial dyes. Actually, the technical word for it is aniline dye. And if you look at all the names of the major European chemical industries, BASF, AGFA, aniline is right in their name. That's what got them started. Now, bringing this back to thorium, well, right now it looks like a lot of countries are dropping the ball on this, and China's taking up the slack. Now, given the historical comparison I made, what does that imply if we don't succeed? It implies that there's going to be a major geopolitical shift in economic power from the Western world to the Chinese world. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the alternative is that eventually the West, well, not eventually, really soon, the West is actually going to wake up to the fact that this technology is technically viable. And just like with coal tar and aniline dye, it's not just the dye that's going to fall out from this. There's more to thorium than just thorium. There's all that nuclear knowledge that you learn from studying it. And we already are talking about the fringe benefits. We're already talking about actinium-225 and treating cancer with targeted radio alpha therapy. And that seems immensely promising, let alone that we could probably half the cost of electricity. We've got this we can produce this cancer treatment that has never existed in nature before that treats cancer orders of magnitudes better than anything out there. And I think what we're talking about with the fringe benefits is just the tip of the iceberg.
As you say, try to maintain eye contact with the
Okay.
there.
Okay. So what thorium technology is we're going to do nuclear power with better safety and less upfront capital cost. We have multiple ways we do this, prime of which is that we change the paradigm of how we handle the fuel. We switch from a solid to a liquid, and there are numerous advantages that you leverage from doing so, including the better safety, from the fact that you have better control over the liquid because, well, liquid flows to the lowest point on a surface. So if you suddenly open up a valve and you create a lower point for it to flow, you can tell where the liquid would go. And that entails engineered safety, where by the natural laws of physics, you can tell if you had some issue with the reactor, you can actually, by the natural laws of gravity, control where your fuel is going to go.
Could you rephrase that last part? I think it was a good point. I just think if you restate it, I'll probably be able to shorten it up a bit.
By the laws of gravity, you can control where the fuel is going to go.
All the way back from if a valve opens.
So what we have is engineered safety. What that means is by the natural laws, we know what's going to happen in the future. Since our fuel is a liquid wants to flow to the lowest point of its container. If you suddenly open a valve such that the point where the liquid is no longer the lowest point, but instead there's a tank underneath, which is really the lowest point, we know by the laws of gravity the liquid is going to flow into the tank.
I just want you to keep trying it a couple times.
All right. So we have engineered safety. What that means is that, well, we know by the laws of physics that liquid wants to flow to the lowest point of its container. If something goes wrong with the reactor, we can open up a valve, and that where the liquid's sitting is no longer the lowest point, but instead the lowest point is going to be a tank underneath. We know that the liquid is going to flow into that tank.
Okay, perfect.
All right, thank you.